Welcome back. I have Will here, and we are moving on to the semifinals. 4 players remaining, and we have the Larsen matchup. We have Christoffer Larsen versus Joe Larsen. And tell me what decks they're bringing, Will.
Yep, so we've seen throughout this weekend, we've seen Christoffer Larsen. He's on 4 color control and piling it, see, crazy good. And he's up against Joe Larsen, who's on Living End, who again is piling it really good. These are probably the 2 biggest names left in this tournament. And we've got them both on the feature match this round. One of these two is going to get to the final. I did make Joel put his magic ring back on. That's an old school thing. You see he has a huge chunky ring. And since he's put that on, he's doing very well in this top 8.
And I think our first feature match from this old tournament was Joe Larsen, right?
Yeah, I think it might have been.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it might have been Canister. It might have been Canister or Joel. One of the two.
Oh, it was Canister, but I think then it was Joe really early on as well. Yeah, it was the second one, yeah.
He's battled his way through every round and got here. He does have to make a flight in 3 hours.
Oh, really?
So he's really hoping that these games go really quickly. So they're just going to square up here and try and resolve the mulligans.
Going to run for the flight.
Well, we're still on our faces. We're not on our camera, on our bit here. We can see the screen. There you go. You can see what we see now.
And the pro players don't need playmats.
No, that's the old school pros. They don't need playmats. It looks like Joel's taking a mulligan here.
Fun fact, I also don't use playmats usually, but I'm not a pro, but...
You don't use mats?
No.
I have a lovely little, like, WillHallExp mat that I always roll out at different tournaments.
I always forget to carry them around, and then the stores are like, do you want a mat? And I'm like, not really.
So, actually, all the top 8 for this event got Ultra Pro playmats. They got the electronic life pad type things, as well as, obviously, all the money and all the ticks that they can spend on the prize pool.
People say they have a regular mat. I think that's one of those things. Each player likes different things.
Who is that? Will Rider cosplay. Will looks like a difference between Daniel Craig and Ryan Gosling, and I'm taking that all day long. Can someone screenshot that, clip that from the chat, and send me that on Twitter? That'd be great. Thank you very much. Made my day.
Somebody's pointing that is Larsson and Larsen, so it's like a slightly different, more S. So like
with my terrible British accent, I'm going to butcher them both. I've spoken to them both. They're both happy with me calling them Larsen. I'm aware they're from 2 different countries. I'm aware it's spelt differently. But if you say Larsen, they both will turn and look at you. So, that's good enough for me. Plus, I know both of them. I've known Chris for quite a long time. Joel I actually met for the first time this weekend, but we've been going back and forth all weekend, giving each other a bit of banter. Hence why he now has that ring back on, because on my stream, he's always on there and always doing really well, and he's always got this ring. And it's obviously paying enough dividend for me. So it looks like they capped. It looks like Chris is going to fetch, and he's going to play an Abundant Growth turn 1. Start getting his mana, draw a card, and then he's going to pass turn over to Joel.
Who do you think has the advantage, Living End or the 4 color?
Game 1. The fact that Joel's on the draw means that Chris might be able to get down a Teferi on turn 3, which Joel, unless he's got a force, is going to find really hard to fight his way through that. I think that could be the twist in the matchup. If not, I kind of want to put my money on Joel. I don't think Chris is going to have too many wraps in the main deck. Let's just have a look at his sideboard. No, sideboard's main deck. He has got no wraps in the main. He does have an Emrakul in the main and 1 endurance, though. So if he does manage to draw that 1 endurance, he's obviously going to be able to probably steal this game. Chris just fetching again. Passing the turn. Joel's going to cycle.
I've seen these sleeves so much from Christoffer Larsen here. So that's a good way to distinguish Christoffer Larsen as these cool sleeves. Joe Larsen with the ring.
So he's happy. He's just tapping. Passing the turn. So you did see that obviously Joel cycled there in his main phase. Maybe he was trying to hit another black spell so he could cast a Grief.
Somebody pointing out there they already played in the Swiss and that Joel won 2-0.
Oh, that's interesting. So they definitely know what each of them are doing. But Chris is on the play here. And I say, if it's a fairy comes down, this is going to be interesting. But it looks like he's just got 2 lands and double Solitude. We might end up seeing this Yorion going back to his hand here. Oh, no, he hasn't drawn for a turn. Okay, a Portal. I don't think a Portal is going to change too much. This is the Scry trigger we've seen numerous times along this weekend. Shocking it in. What could shocking a Temple Garden mean here? He's going to fetch. He's going to fetch that away. This is before the bauble trigger, I believe. And this will bring him up to 4 mana. I'm not quite sure what he's got instant speed for 4 mana. Looking at his deck, he could have Ice Fang Nicole. Maybe endurance. Maybe Joel's seen. No, obviously it's open deck list. Joel knows he's got 1 endurance in the main. If he manages to draw it off the top here, that could be huge in this matchup.
There we go.
Joel's going for it. Joel's saying 8 power is good enough for me to put on the battlefield, but I don't know if it will be enough. One of them does have Hexproof, but Joel, he does have double Solitude, and he's gonna pitch a Solitude to play it. It goes to the graveyard. Then when this Living End resolves, the Solitude will come back. It will eat the 3/3. Joel will get a trigger though and manage to look at the top 3 cards of his deck. I still believe Chris, this is all with the bauble trigger on the stack. Ephemerate. Open, oh my, they're 3 really good ones. I awkwardly think here, the cards you want to give him will be the Ephemerate. These are 3 bombs for Chris to draw here.
Yeah, definitely a difficult decision for Joe.
I suppose if he does put the Oath on top, he only gets the option of the Reef, Risen Reef. Where if we stack it differently, maybe you go Ephemerate on top, Oath with Nissa, and then we don't know what the 2 cards under that would be. This is really hard for Joel. I suppose if Joel's also got a Force of Negation in his hand, you obviously just give him the Ephemerate. So it's not too obvious to be fair, but they are 3 absolute hits for Chris here. Okay. Let's see how this plays out. Gonna draw for turn, pass the turn. Maybe when they played in the Swiss, they didn't actually know what each other was on.
Yeah.
And that's why Chris was like, right, I'm gonna keep a double Solitude hand, even though it's got quite a heavy land, a lot of land in it. I'm still gonna keep it and see where we go.
Yeah, and Joel here, not looking too good, right?
No, I think he's done enough to try and now rebuild a big board, but it might not get him there in time. By the time that Chris, if he bans something like an Omnath, etc., we might just start seeing these Cascade spells literally being a wrap on one side of the board, because Chris will start getting his engine going of Omnath into the Risen Reefs. And we're just going for it again here, or are we just playing this as a generic 2/2? Looks like we're just playing it as I'm paying 3 mana for a 2/2, and Chris must be loving seeing that on the other side of the battlefield. I wonder if they're talking about like these 3 cards that he saw on top. He's like, just let's open Nissa. What else does I have on top? And now he's going to have full knowledge of the 3 cards that were on top, and he takes the Risen Reef. I imagine we're going to see Risen Reef into maybe a land here.
Yeah,
so they got the
there he goes.
It's definitely a spell. Chris is going to pay the 2. So now he does have 1 white mana for that Ephemerate that we know he's got in hand.
And
so he's cast 1 Living End. I believe he's got 1 in hand at least. I don't think he doesn't have any left in the deck. I think he's just deciding that it's not worth bringing back nothing from the graveyard. As always, Twitch chat, let us know which deck you think is favoured here. Let's pick 1s for the full colour and 2 for the Living End deck here. Get them in chat, show us your predictions.
And chat has been really good at predicting lately, but
Chat are always on the ball. They know what's going on. They're big brain players. Joel untapped. 4 mana. Really, he can actually hard cast that Cycler here. Unfortunately, it doesn't have Hexproof though, and it can just get done with the Solitude if he manages to Ephemerate it. Like Ephemerating that Solitude here is just more value, because again, when it comes in, he not only gets to kill the creature, he also gets the Risen Reef trigger.
attacking.
Combat, swing at you.
Because let's not forget that Christoffer Larsen is at 8 life, so while Joel is still at 23.
He does have a Solitude though, obviously that'll gain him 3 life if he manages to turn that sideways or decides to block. And with the, I can't remember the name of that big 5/5, I know it's got Hexproof. He's just going to jump up, gain his life total a bit higher.
Yeah.
I don't hate that. Cycle away Street Wraith, lose another 2 life. Ooh, that could be big in this matchup. Joe's obviously drawing a lot of land, and we spoke about this before in the Living End deck. This happens quite a lot. With the amount of cycling you do, you will inevitably just start drawing cards that will not cycle. I think he's ran out of them in his hand. I think we've got a couple of land, Living End, and maybe a way to...
I see a Bosejo there.
He's got one more Cascade spell in his hand, correct? Yes. So there's one more Living End left in the deck. And then he's kind of on a clock. Like, when does he pull the trigger for this, if he wants to pull the trigger for this? Because if he draws that second Living End, it's almost GG's.
Yeah.
Joel's in a tough spot. It might be a bit of dancing. I don't think he wants to just bring back 2 creatures, especially when there's a Solitude in the graveyard. Like, that Solitude, again, will just eat one of the creatures. And Chris is doing a really good job of, like, controlling not only the board, but also the graveyard. He draws an Unholy Heat there. It's not going to be very good against a hexproof creature. But he does draw another Solitude. That is a really good hit for Chris.
Yeah.
I could see maybe him putting the Urani in hand sometime soon.
Oh, before.
Joel's thinking of maybe doing a combat phase. Oh, what happens if he's got another white card in hand and ditches it? There's a combat phase here. Cascade. Cast the last Living End in his deck. He's going to get back a 4/4 flyer and a 3/4 Island Walk. Chris is going to get back the Solitude. The Solitude will get back. Will get rid of one of the creatures on this side. I imagine the 4/4. But no, Joel Larsen decides not to do that.
Oh, people are saying that they can attack because it has Summoner's Sickness. That's what they were saying. Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry about that one. The 1 point damage isn't going to do much in this matchup. Okay, he's found a Grief. A Grief from ditching Living End. This might be enough to be able to pull the trigger here. That is a great find for him. Joel's going to know exactly what's happening now.
And Grief is such an amazing card. Gives you so much information.
Yeah, it's a free Forces that's attached to a creature body that, you know, if he's going to do this for free, and then if he does Cascade and get hit another Living End, gets to bring it back and take 2 cards out of Chris's hand. I feel like what Chris is probably thinking here is he might hard cast the Solitude from his hand. So if a Living End does happen, that the Grief won't be returning.
Yeah. And do you see how much these Evoke cards have been playing? Like,
we were just speaking about that, me and Harry.
Oh, really?
Round 15, wondering how many. But if you look at the top decks, not many of the top decks of the meta for day 2 are playing these sort of free spells. Only really 4 color. We don't have it in Hammer Time. We don't have it in Blue Red Murktide, and we don't have it in Living End. Living End's only got Grief. That's it. Like, I suppose there's a couple of Endurances, a couple of Solitudes floating around.
some Furies as well.
In the 4 color lists?
Yeah.
Yes. They play them. That's the main abuser of these cards, right? Because they get to play Ephemerate.
And Glimpse also plays with Fury. That made top 8.
Yeah, I see. So how many are in the top 8? That's a good question. So in the top 8, we've got... So Joel's got Endurances, Griefs, and maybe some Solitudes, some Subtleties. I think Chris has got them all besides Grief. Then we've got the Amulet Titan might have the Endurances. And lastly, we're going to have the Murktide player might again have Subtleties. So that's a good chunk. That's probably, what, around 30, 35 cards that are the new cycle from Modern Horizons 2. Yeah, there was unfortunately, no Yawgmoths made it to the top 8. I love Endurance in Yawgmoth. Because while the evoke triggers on the stack, you can actually use it to cord, and that's how you can go get a combo off really quickly. So we're letting this resolve. Like, would you like to look at this one, or how about you want to look at this one?
And long are the days where you didn't have mana, you didn't have anything. Now, even if you have no mana up, opponent still needs to be a bit careful.
Exactly. So Joe is weighing up his options here. What does he want to do? 5/5 can't be touched. I kind of think Joel wishes he could attack and have it die so these do come back. He's now weighing it up. Look. Am I going to do this end of turn? I'm going to get back 5 creatures. You're going to get it back your 1 subtlety. Oh, and wrong, solitude. You're going to get back your solitude. Exile one of my threats. Can I win the game from here? And with Chris on a lower life, there's a chance he could grind it out maybe over 2 or 3 turns, but then it's open to Chris and what he top decks. This will be the last living end that is cast this game if he does cascade into it. Let's having a look. What else has he got? I wonder. Oh no, does hexproof mean you're the word? Can we click on it? Is hexproof you can your opponent can't target it, but you still can. You can, right? That's how boggles work. So maybe he's going to use the land that can bounce something back to your hand. He bounces his own creature back to his hand, cycles it, and then casts the living end to get it back.
Yeah, Shroud is the one that you can.
Shroud, that's the one. I can see that as not a bad line that I wouldn't hate here, because you've got 4 mana to cast it and then 1 mana to cycle it back into your graveyard. You untap, you can then cascade, hit your last living end in your upkeep before you've got a draw phase, because obviously if you draw that last living end, the whole game plan falls apart.
Yeah.
We'll see how Joel runs to this.
And bold players really taking their time. This doesn't have a timer since it is the semifinals. And they really don't have anything to lose by taking their time and making sure they don't make any mistake. They both know each other as well, so they both have respect and know how good of players the opponent is. So
Joe does have something to lose. His flight home.
Oh,
Joe's got that added pressure that he has to catch a flight relatively quickly, and he's probably against the 4-color deck, which drags out many games. They were talking about this before the game, so you know, Chris is aware of this. Maybe he's using it as mind games. I don't think he would be. I think he would just be saying it as a little bit of banter between both players. I'm going to return the Jory into my hand.
Joel had to make a decision. Either play.
Oh, he's going to bounce the Risen Reef. I'm not entirely sure if I actually like this play. Like, this is going to knock him down to 5. He doesn't have the mana to cascade and try and get one big swing in here. Chris is stuck on mana. He's only obviously got 5 sources, which is kind of tailoring to 1 spell a turn. And that Risen Reef on the battlefield is doing a lot of work with whenever elementals come into play. He does get a trigger to try and find more lands and dig through his deck. Yeah. But what is he going to do here? I'm pretty sure he's just going to let it bounce back to his hand. He is pretty solitude rich right now. Joel knows every card in his hand besides 1. And if he was to cascade off here and hit his last living end, I imagine we'd see Chris at least put 1 more solitude into his graveyard, which means Joel's graveyard becomes slightly worse. Probably the 2 flyers end up getting exiled. I wonder. I really like the line of bouncing my own creature back to my hand and cycling. Not only then, you also get to go 1 card deeper. You get to untap, and if you draw, you get to draw 2 more cards basically. And if any of those are cyclers, you get to fill your graveyard up even more. And then from there, you can probably win. I think he hit another 5/5 Hexproofer. Oh, and Ice Fang was the last card that we didn't know about.
Oh no, that's so punishing here.
It doesn't have Death Touch.
Oh, it doesn't?
No,
there doesn't. Yeah.
It's only 1 basic island, snow-covered plain. No, forest. It's a snow-covered forest in play.
Yeah. So it's just a chump
it's
here.
Just a chump of a 1/1. Get another creature, and the more creatures he can get in his graveyard. Oh, hold on a minute. Oh, that's not got. Yeah, there you go. The players managed to catch it. How Chris is going to deal with this, we're not entirely sure. He's going to draw a turn. That's a Ren 6, so that could help him with his land issues that he's been having. But he's going to. Well, I suppose you can play the Reef plus the Ren 6 here.
Yeah.
He's going to see if he can get a trigger from here. Maybe dig himself deeper. If he does draw another white spell, that means he's got access to double Solitude in response to a living end. And if he's counting, he will know that Joel has only got 1 left in the deck. He knows one's been cast. He knows one's been ditched to the grief. So there is only one left in Joel's deck. I believe he's only playing 3. I've been saying that. Yep, he's only got 3, and he's not playing a 4th in the board. Some lists are playing 4 in the board for the more heavy counterspell matchups. Why are we drawing a card there? It's not Bauble.
So the reef resolved.
Oh, that was off the... Okay,
yeah.
So the Risen Reef is resolving. That's where that extra card got you. So that does look like he's drawn at least 1 land. What else has he got hiding under there? 7 cards. Looks like a Sacred Foundry in his hand.
I see a Wren.
So
there you go.
did he shock that in? So yeah, it looks like he must have shocked that in. Play red and 6. I want to return this land, please. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to pass the turn. But the longer this game goes, the better it's going to get for Joel. The more his graveyard eventually will just get so big that all these Solitudes coming back won't be able to get him back into this game.
Exactly.
But the longer he takes, the more chance that Chris ends up drawing either a tutor card that can go find the Endurance, or maybe he's going to force his hand with a Teferi. He's just going to swing here for 5. Now this is quite scary. What is he going to do here? No, he takes it.
Takes it, so it's at 4.
He's at 4 life. These Solitudes are really messing the math up here for Joel. Like what he's going to do. It looks like he's going to go for it. He's going to cast the last living end. He's not. He's just shuffling. Has he? Is there one we're missing? Maybe he has none left in the deck? Or is he just deciding he doesn't want to do this and kind of bluffing to Chris? This last card in my hand is the living end. We all know it's not. We know it's a violent outburst, I believe, that's left in his hand. Okay, he's forcing it. Is this where you fire it off or not? Also, to note here, Chris, I believe, has got an Unholy Heat in hand, so he can Unholy Heat his own Risen Reef. Oh. That living end triggers, comes back, brings back all these Solitudes. He could even go Solitude, ditch the Solitude for Solitude, put another Solitude in the bin, get a Risen Reef trigger, draw a card, exile the 2/2, which it's not in play yet currently, but put another Solitude in the bin, then Unholy Heat his own Risen Reef. They all come back. He gets a Risen Reef trigger ×3. Plus, he gets to draw a card off the Ice Fang that's in the graveyard.
Yeah, so even living end not looking too good here. And there he goes. It has to go for it.
He's forcing his hand now. Is he just going to shuffle or is he going to keep flipping? He is going to flip. I think he's decided that he's in a bad state. This is the best he can do. If it doesn't pan out, then he's going to lose the game.
Exactly.
He's going to end up actually catching his flight. So there it is. There's the last living end.
Love the signature there.
Now let's see if Chris is going to do some sort of play like I spoke about. So I believe that's a prismatic ending that he just exiled there. Solitude into play. Evoke trigger. I would like to put this back into my graveyard. / Risen Reef trigger. I would like to look at the top card and I would put it into play on my hand, please. We did see earlier on, Chris took an Emrakul trigger and took his opponent's turn. And he actually swapped seats with his opponent.
I saw that. I was commenting on that one.
He actually got up, switched seats, and was just like, yep, I'm going to take your turn from your seat as well.
Yeah, we were like, where is Christoffer going? Oh, just taking opponent's turn.
I like
casually.
it. I've got a lot of time for that. You can do that when you're in a feature match. You can't really do it when the table's, 20 people long. Hold on a sec, mate. I need to run around. Okay, let's see how this pans out for him. Chris is looking, he's basically saying, how many Solitudes is it worth picking in my graveyard? Because obviously, keeping one in his hand and hard casting is a good backup in case something goes wrong. He's going to get his top card in his hand off the Risen Reef trigger, so it gives him more of a decision if he does want to cast the second one. And it looks like he does.
Yeah. We didn't see what happened there.
Yep, so he's basically ditched white card for the first Solitude. Solitude's going to play Risen Reef hits another land there, puts it into play. I believe that's a fancy Misty Rainforest. And then we're going to see this Living End resolve. Obviously, you have to wait for the keywords of Joel saying, yes, I'm casting this Living End before you do all this. Because you did all this and then Living End was still on the stat, you know, on the cascade thing. You go, no, I don't really want to cast it.
Unholy Heat there, maybe?
I can see an Unholy Heat on my reef. I actually really, really, really like Unholy Heat on my own Risen Reef. I love it. This is the play I was talking about, and he's just going to generate so much value here. Joel knew that this could be a possibility, but his hand was forced by this Teferi coming on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Chris is just going to play for both players here.
And that's why Teferi is such a good card. I mean, it makes your opponent have to take a decision there.
I don't think the Cascader is dead, right? It's still on the stack.
Yeah, it's on the stack.
So this is Living End resolving. All creatures in the graveyards are going to come into play, and all creatures in play are going to go into the graveyard. I do think that that card from Joel, because it's definitely not exiled with Solitude, because it's not in play currently. So I think that should still be in play. I'm not sure it's going to matter too much, but I think it should still be in play.
People are saying there's Teferi that Living End can't resolve, but the Living End was in response to Teferi.
This is all on the stack.
Yeah, so Teferi is on the stack.
This is in response to that Teferi Time Raveler coming into play. You'll notice there's no counters on it. That's because it is still on the stack.
Exactly, so...
But watch this. I'm going to exile 3 of your creatures. You're going to gain a lot of life. I'm going to draw a card. I'm going to get 4 Risen Reef triggers.
And that's exactly why Christoffer played the Teferi, to make Joel have to make the decision there, to play their last Living End.
And that was an Ephemerate off the top, I believe it was. So not only now he can Ephemerate, get rid of another 2 creatures, and now he's got a bigger board presence than his opponent. I'm just going to see about the...
Exactly, this is Violent in Larson's turn, going to Living End.
2/2?
It's the Shardless Regent.
I believe that should be in play.
With a good...
I'm going to leave you... I'm going to run out there and just try and pick him up for that quick 2 seconds.
And Will was just warning a judge right now about some question. Oh, Shardless was Solitude. For those of you asking, Teferi was on the stack. So...
And I will get...
Chat was saying that the agent was Solitude.
It was the Violent Outburst, wasn't it? The Violent Outburst is what cast this second Living End, so that was currently in play. The players are having a laugh out there. They're literally, we should mic them up at some point. They're literally having a giggle out there and how bad this is going for Joel.
They were having fun there?
Yeah. And that's the main point of how playing Magic, right? Why we're playing this game, yes, it's fun winning money. But if you're not going to have fun with it, with your mates...
Yeah.
And we know that there's no more Living Ends left in Joel's deck, so I'm not entirely sure how he's going to get back from this. I know he has to catch a flight. If I was Joel here and I was in his situation, I'm pretty sure I'd just scoop it up and go to the next game.
Yeah.
Did the Grief ETB resolve? Did it take the Yorion that was in hand, I believe? I think after all that, Yorion was the last card that was worth taking in the hand, and he took the Yorion with the Grief trigger. I'm going, scoop it. Yeah, it's just,
scooping.
It's enough. Like,
yeah, at this point, Joel is like, okay, I have a flight to catch.
Yeah, let's go to the next game. See if I can Living End turn 3. So Joel, what's he going to bring in here? He's got 3 Mystical Disputes, 3 Leylands of Sanctity, 3 Leylands of the Void, 2 Force of Vigors, 2 Subtleties, and 2 Foundation Breakers. In this matchup against 4 color, I kind of like the Mystical Disputes, like having a 1-mana answer to the Omnath, to the Teferis. I think that's pretty good. Same with Subtleties. I think he's going to have to bring these in because Chris's choice of cards to get rid of the graveyard is going to be the Endurance.
Yeah.
So I believe the Endurance is going to come in. I think you trim on a few of the force negation type cards, maybe a couple of the cyclists, maybe the wakers or the sky turtle.
At the same time, if opponent is able to cast a fairy, Mystical Dispute ends up being a dead card. So it's one of those things that are really relative.
Well, if the game goes late, Joel has to make sure on turn 3 a Teferi doesn't come down.
Yeah.
That's one of his main priorities so he can carry on with the game. We see when it comes down there, it forced his hand. He wasn't able to set up, and he did, obviously it just went real bad for him. And Chris, Matt, he did draw in an 80 card deck 3 or 4 of his own Solitude, so it's pretty rough for him on that one. Chris, what's Chris going to bring in? Chris has got 3 Chalice of the Voids.
Yeah.
Pretty sure that's coming in. 2 Veil Summers, 2 Endurances, 2 Force of Vigors, 1 Supreme Verdict, 1 Magus of the Moon, and 1 Flusterstorm. There's a lot of cards for this matchup in that sideboard.
And 1 Bosiju.
Oh, and a Bosiju on the second piece of paper, sure. I don't think the Boseju's coming in here. I'm pretty sure he's bringing in the 3 Chalices, the 2 Endurances. There's a hit or miss on the Verdict, maybe?
Yeah.
With a Sorcery Speed, Living End, and making a huge board. If he then can untap and just cast a Supreme Verdict, that's pretty good. So there's a chance that could come in. Not big on the Magus, even though if Joel doesn't play around it, he can get locked out from that. And definitely this last Flusterstorm's coming in as well.
Yeah. Some people are asking what is the other semi-final match?
The other semi-final match is Blue-Red Murktide versus Amulet. Is it Amulet Shift, I believe?
Yeah.
Versus Amulet Shift. I don't currently have a live update on that.
So Shift 1 against Glimpse.
Yes. These are the decks we've got currently in the top 4. Obviously, the 2 winners of each match are going to play against each other. Currently, with Chris 1 up, it's looking favourable for him. We did point out that in the Swiss, these 2 did play, but they didn't have access to each other's deck lists, and they didn't know what they were playing around. They didn't know what the other person might have been on. Especially in the early rounds, you want every advantage you can get when you look across from you, and there's a Larsen sat there, and you're like, okay, cool, I need to be on top of my game here. I need to not give them away anything, and no, I'm not telling you what's on my deck. You're going to have to find out the hard way.
One thing we can say for sure is that we are going to have 1 Larsen in the finals.
I would like to think that. If it doesn't, something's gone horribly wrong. There's a chance maybe Joel wins and gets to certain, he's like, I want to catch my flight, and just shakes the opponent's hand and goes. We've seen that before in old tournaments. That does happen. They're both power shuffling now. They should be finishing this relatively. Well, I say Chris is going to take a wild power shuffle with an 80 card deck. The man's got big hands. You know, he's a big lad, big hands, big Dane. But Joel still does have that ring. I can't count Joel out when he has that ring on his finger. If you know, you know. If you don't know, don't worry about it. It's fine. But you can see that big rock on his finger. It's huge. It's kind of part of Joel. Like I can't think of Joel Larsen without having great hairline, great bone structure, and a great ring. It's a big silver ring on that finger.
Game 2, do you think is favored?
Well, after that first, I've always been on the side that I think 4 colors favored here. Mainly because of the endurances and the fact that it has Teferis, etc. But that's not saying that Joel doesn't have the answers for these. If he goes turn 1 Grief, cycle, turn 2 Force Negation, cycle, turn 3 Living End, that's just game.
People are loving your suit, Will.
No, I had a suit. Thank you. Yeah, I like to dress to the part. You know what I mean? I try to be as professional as I can. Give you guys the inside scoop. Trying to get all this metagame stuff for you as well when I'm not on. It's good. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying this today. I'm enjoying it, spending my beautiful Sunday with you all. Do you know today it's actually 6 months since I turned my stream off?
Really?
Today's the day. 6 months today since I turned my own stream off.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right? I was talking to someone out there and we started talking about it.
So 6 months since the war.
Unfortunately, yeah. Unfortunately. But here we are.
For those of you that don't know, since the war started, I think Will started the 24-hour stream with old PTs.
Yeah, people seem to enjoy it. People are liking it. But it doesn't matter. These players are shuffling up. We're going to go to game 2 here with Joel on the play. It looks like both kept the opening 7. Joel's just going to start with a cycle of a Street Wraith. And another cycle of a Street Wraith. Like, see, if you did this and you didn't know what he was on, maybe you'd think he's on Death Shadow.
Yeah. But unfortunately, no Death Shadows this weekend.
No.
On day 2 at least.
And then into a Grief. Like, this is the sort of hand that I was talking about.
No, actually, there was some Death Shadow on day 2.
There was a Death Shadow player. We actually had him on the feature match, and they managed to beat the Prison Tron deck. It was beautiful. If we also add here, Chris, or no, Joel Larsen still hasn't even cycled a card yet by using mana.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's he going to decide to take here? I don't think he wants to take a creature, but there is an endurance in hand. Also, to note, he's kept the one lander. Do you try and cut him off his mana here by taking the traverse? And I think, look, Chris has made it easy for you. He's like, look, you're taking one of these two. How is your hand looking? Do you have a force negation or do you have a subtlety? Whichever one you've got, you're going to take the other card. And he's going to take... he does have subtlety in hand and still takes the endurance. Doesn't really care about Chris's land situation, clearly. I didn't get quite a good look at what that was on top.
Yeah. Wonder if it's the second land or not.
So this is a sticky situation. Chris fetching here, did he get a basic forest and play the abundant growth on it? Does he get a basic forest and play the traverse? Or does he get a dual land, the one of the shock lands, and then traverse off that? Because obviously, if any of this gets forced negations, he's just left with a forest in play.
Yes.
So he's actually doing this. So he's playing around the fact that he could get forced. And Joel's obviously said, nope, you can do it. And now he's going to go find a basic. Finds himself a basic forest.
And right now, what does Joel as in end? Do you know, Will?
I believe he's got one subtlety.
Okay.
And it looks like he's just drawn... Oh, she's got a foundation breaker in there. He's got a cycler and a subtlety. I believe they're the two cards I can see. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. With these players, like, shuffling so often, the camera has to keep refocusing because it keeps focusing on their arms and then having to focus back on the table. It's something that we'll try and work on for next time. So Chris plays the land for a turn, plays the abundant growth, draws his card for a turn, and untapped. Joel just cycles.
Oh, force of negation.
And there's a force of negation. Foundation Breaker. I would like to destroy that enchantment on your card, giving you 2 color sources. Chris says, yep, that happens. But Joel misses his 3rd land drop there. And that's the magic number, right? 3 is the magic number this deck wants to do. And Chris rips a Stomping Ground off the top, which produces the red mana who is after to be able to play that red and 6.
Ren is such a powerful card.
And Joel did have the Force Negation in hand, plus blue card. Decided against casting them both.
Would you force of negation here?
No, I don't think I would. Like, he already hit the card that he...
Another one.
Yeah, okay. If only I was drawing that, maybe I would. Joel's still missing land drops. Not only that, he also needs a red land. An island and a forest, a green and blue producing land is not good enough for him. He has to hit a red source to be able to go off it.
Yeah. Because it does have violent outburst, right?
Yep, that looks like a subtlety off the top for Chris.
Yeah, so a subtlety, 2 force of negations, and 1 outburst. That's what I saw. Maybe 2 outbursts?
Joel's going to have a look at Veil, see what it does. Prevents things from being countered, which I suppose does play around the forces. They've only got a limited time on them.
Yeah.
It's deciding what mana to get. I imagine it's going to be maybe blue-white. Maybe it's the Hollow Fountain here because he's got 3 green sources already. And he has got 0 white sources currently. Oh, he's just going to straight up get a basic Plains. Return it. So he's kind of edging towards Ice Fang from Nicole here. If he can get enough snow-covered basics in his deck or in play, these Nicoles will trade with these 5/5 Hex Poopers like we saw in the last game.
And some people are saying the game is over.
Someone's saying he's got Hollowed Fountain in hand. Has he got a Hollowed Fountain? And here we are. Look, this is exactly what I was saying. If we could, he could be playing with. So he's going to play this, draw a card. Was that Joel hit his 3rd land drop? So now he's got instant speed. Wrath one side of the board. But he still does know about that subtlety. He's got none of his creatures in his graveyard that got hexproof.
Yeah. You know what would be so good here for Joel at the ferry? Having to force those negations.
Yeah, Chris went for it. I think Chris just has to play it calm though, right? He knows that Joe's not been making his land drops.
Yeah.
He's been cycling quite a lot. There's a strong chance he has an instant speedway to cast a living end here. How is he going to play around it? We'll find out shortly. That's the Temple Garden comes into play untapped. That's one thing about this 4-color deck is you do end up shocking quite a lot and making your life total quite low.
Yeah.
You do rely on Omnath to try and get you back with life total points, but we haven't seen an Omnath in both these games so far.
And for those of you that didn't see, Joel has 2 Force of Negations in hand, an Outburst, and...
It might be double Outburst.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it could be a Celtic. I believe he's had that since
Yeah, it has
the start
a
of the game.
Celtic, and I think it has 2 Outbursts and 2 Negations. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, no red mana right now.
Well, he's got the fetch land, right? The
Yeah,
fetch land will go
can
get
get
that. And I imagine we will see it in a turn. It's just, how is Chris going to set up for this? Chris is a smart player. He knows how this goes. And by playing in the Carl on the battlefield, if Chris has somehow got, any of his red removal in his hand, he can just kill his own Nakatl in response.
Oh, you're into hand.
You're into hand. Maybe he just wants an extra white card to be able to ditch to the Solitude.
And there we go for the red source.
I do believe there's 9 cards in Chris's hand as well. So with this Living End that's probably about to be cast, he does have the opportunity to, ditch 2 cards, play the Solitude.
And there we go.
1, 2, land, agent. Hopefully those mystical disputes I was talking about did come in.
And
You want to find a living end relatively soon, because the longer it takes for you to find a living end, the more chance you drawing the following living ends. Because it's just you shuffle these cards and you put them on the bottom of your library. So every card that he flips over that's not living end, the odds of drawing one goes up. Oh, we have a Flusterstorm. But we know that Chris has got, I know that Joel's got Force Negation in hand, but he also knows that there's a Veil of Summer on the other side of the battlefield.
yeah.
So he chooses not to do it, pick your battles.
And Veil of Summer being so good here.
Oh, I suppose here he can untap and then cast the next one. We have access to deck list, so he knows that that's the only Flusterstorm in Chris's deck. Really interested to see what he does it.
What would you do here if you were on Joel's side?
It's a good question. And this is about patience. Does Joel willing to take the turn off and let Chris untap and potentially have a really powerful turn? Or is he just going to try and do it now, get his little bit of value? His value would get him back a Foundation Breaker, a 4/4 Flyer, a 7/7, a Grief, +2 Street Wraiths.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know there's a Solitude. I imagine one of those Solitudes would end up going to the graveyard. So the Solitude would come back and most likely eat the 7/7. But then what Joel doesn't know is there's actually a second one in his hand. But then he does get a Grief trigger. I think I would pull the trigger here, and I think I would try and get my last, another living end in play here. It just doesn't feel great. It feels like it could go wrong. That's the problem that Joel's having here. He's got no protection for Chris just pitting more and more Solitudes into his graveyard.
But you told that Joel has a flight to catch really soon.
Exactly. So maybe it's just, look, these are my cards on tape. But he's also got, the respect that he thinks he can win this.
Yeah.
He wants to win this. He doesn't want to walk away from this by telling Chris you won the game.
Yeah.
He wants to go, no, Chris, I remember when I beat you at Copenhagen.
Especially being here in the feature match area.
Exactly. And he's just going to pass the turn. He's going to hope that Chris doesn't have such a great turn. And that wasn't an Omnath. So Omnath's basically where this could go wrong. Omnath and a free drop.
Risen Reef?
Risen Reef, thank you. Terrible now. I'm getting so excited. I'm forgetting all the names. But yeah, Risen Reef is basically what he does. He doesn't want to see Risen Reef and he doesn't want to see an Omnath here. If he sees these, he's kind of forced to pull the trigger. And he wants to try and play it in his turn. Probably at the end of Chris's turn. So then he can untap and at least gets attacked. Because obviously if he does it in his own turn, that's Sorcery speed. Chris has a chance to untap and just hardcast his Solitudes.
Yeah.
And Chris is just going to pass the turn.
And the outburst. Let's go.
Another thing to note here.
Oh, third card from the top.
Is that Ren 6 is on 7.
Veil of Summer in response.
He's doing this to not only draw a card, but it's to stop the grief. So when that grief comes back in, he doesn't get a chance to look at his hand. This is a forcible target. Like, what else have you got to force here? Ooh. 2 sec. There you go. We're back. Why drawing? No, he's not doing it to... yes, he can cycle it and draw a card. But the main reason... In fact, hold on. Why is he drawing a card off that? Was there a blue spell cast?
Because it's a black spell and Veil of Summer says blue or black.
Ah, seeing, yes. So with it on the stack, it's being cast, not resolved. He does get to draw a card. And the main reason he's doing this is to get this grief trigger when it comes to the play. It means he can't target him. Solitude does come into play. Exile's the big 7/7.
And this is why Veil of Summer is such a powerful card as well. It doesn't only protect you against the counters. It also allows you to draw. It also gives you protection for 1 mana.
Okay, so basically chat think that we're not forcing here because he wants to leave blue card for the subtlety in his hand, because if an endurance came down after that, you know, it's basically going to tuck 6 cards. I believe it was 6 cards were going to go to the bottom of Joel's graveyard. Library is not what he's going to want to have. Joel taps, draws a land. Now has the ability to hard cast a subtlety if he needs to, but obviously the damage is kind of done. How much damage can he get in here? The 4/4 can get in an attack, and there's no good blocks on the other side of the battlefield. And attacking with the grief does mean that he would get a solitude. Obviously what he doesn't know is in Chris's hand he still has another solitude.
Yeah.
I imagine that will get hard cast and take out the 4/4. And then I'm inclined to throw one of these solitudes plus the endurance in front of the grief and just ultimate my Ren 6 next turn.
Yeah, and Christoffer played the Veil this turn, right? So we know that Joel Larsen cannot play any counters.
No, it was last turn, right? It was at the end of Chris's end step is when the cascade happened, and that's also when he cycled it, so the grief trigger wouldn't have happened. Chris just deciding to let the Ren 6 die, though. Deciding that he doesn't have enough in his graveyard that's worth, you know, keeping it around to ultimate. I don't know if I would have been that patient. I feel like I would have prioritized that that resolving, because I have a Traverse in there. I'm gonna probably have Delirium on, right? There'll be a Planeswalker land, Sorcery instant. So yeah, I think the Traverse will be on.
Christoffer at 11 live.
He does have to obviously be aware of that, because Joel is on the turn things sideways plan right now. No swamp on the battlefield does mean that those are obviously the street races do not have swamp walk. That's how he's able to double block it. Looking at Chris's hand, I can see he's got Solitude. I think there's a Risen Reef in there.
Ren.
It might have been a Ren 6. It's not
That's
a Reef,
why Christoffer didn't mind the Ren 6 going. Yeah, the backup.
The backup doesn't start on 7 loyalty and threaten to ultimate. There's another cycle card for Joel. Now, how does he go about this turn here?
Definitely going to be an interesting play here.
Well, he's got no information, right? He has no idea what is in Chris's hand. We know there's a couple of lands. It looks like a Solitude plus... It might be 2 Solitudes, actually.
Somebody said an Allen Fountain.
No, it's definitely a double Solitude.
Yeah.
So is Chris just going to get a basic here? Maybe a basic forest? Yep. Joel's going to hard cast Sussy it. Would you like that on top or bottom of your deck?
And seeing the evoke cards here non-stop.
It does not like the full art ones. So what it basically says is you can type this spell on the stack, planeswalker or creature. Opponent can choose to either put it on the top or bottom of their library. So
and let's not forget that Christoffer still has another Solitude in hand that we know of.
It looks like he took a big hit there. Is the life total correct? Is that 10 after that attack?
Christoffer is at 11.
No, the life totals are getting changed now.
Okay, so Christoffer at 4, 3.
3?
There's a countdown. So it
Does
looks
look like he's at 3. Okay.
Yeah, it looks like Christoffer Larsen is at 3 life.
He's going to untap. He's going to play the Solitude. He's going to get rid of the flyer, so at least he's got a chance of surviving here. Joel draws another Cycler. Attacking, that gets blocked there. I can get in for 3 with this. Chump here, another 3. He's just working the math out here with Chris on 3 life, but with a life linker in play. And no white mana up, so he knows that there's no Ephemerate coming. Can he push lethal this turn? I think the question is he has to start with a cycle. Like I'd like to know what that top card is in case it is maybe another Outburst. If it's another Outburst, you can then give your whole team +1/+0 to end the turn. You don't have to cast the extra living end that's in the deck.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes I do forget the Outburst as that.
Yeah, it actually has other text besides.
Yeah, exactly. Usually it's just like, okay, let's cascade.
Okay, so he's just getting in here with these 2. I think I like double blocking the Grief here, trading the Solitude. Life totals stay the same.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure why he didn't. Like, if you're attacking with 2, try to attack. Well, like, there he didn't really get any damage through. It took 1 creature off both players onto the graveyard. I'm sure there's a line I'm not seeing. Boom. How to pay.
And now we have to go for the Force of Negations.
You can actually hardcast 2 Force Negations here.
Yeah.
So if Chris does have another Veil, I manages to Veil in response. Okay, yeah, so if I goes to the Exile Zone. Chris plays a land for the turn. It looks like Chris has just got 4 lands in hand.
Yeah.
Chris, he's at 3 life. Is Joel just going to turn things sideways, or is he going to try and play around like another Solitude, another Endurance maybe that can block?
Oh, there's a Shardless Agent in his end, it looks like.
If you choose Shardless for the turn, I kind of like this. I like swing with everything. Yeah.
Yeah, just...
We're going to a game 3.
And apparently Joe Larsen is going to have some trouble catching the flight, but hopefully for a good reason.
Like, if you're going to miss your flight, doing it because you managed to win this event is a pretty good reason, mate.
Leaving End is so nasty, somebody saying. It's a great deck, and that's why it was one of the most played decks here.
Harry's in disbelief that they're going to a game 3.
Harry,
are you kidding me?
One on the other side.
The one on the other side?
Yep.
I think it was Murktide.
Murktide.
Okay.
I think so. I'll go double check.
Harry's going to go check. It looks like Murktide might be in the final, waiting the winner of this match.
Which is Living End or 4 colors. So either way, the final is predictable.
It's gonna be one of the tier 1 decks in the format. Who could have predicted it? I feel like if it's against Living End, I kind of favour the Murktide player.
Yeah.
If it's 4 color, I favour the 4 color player in that matchup. But both these players have got to beat each other first. See how they get on. Still shuffling up. It takes so long.
Chat, who are you rooting for? 1, Murktide. 2, 4 colors. 3, Living End.
Oh, just out of them all, who do you think is going to take the whole tournament
who is going to win the whole tournament?
Okay, let's go. Let's start seeing the Twitch chat. Let's populate those numbers. 1s, 2s, or 3s.
Thanks for the love for people
Ooh,
saying
a
we're
couple of
doing a
ones
good
and
job casting.
threes. There's 2 there, I see.
Leaving End.
I also would be interested, chat. If you were here this weekend, what would you have played?
Somebody saying Titan Chief is in the final.
Yes, this came tight shit to the final.
Oh, okay. No, the
So,
Mercs
just
I play is
kidding.
not there, so it
Yeah.
is a Titan Shift. Titan Shifts awaits both of these decks. So that's kind of the reverse. If it's 4 color, I feel like Titan Shift is favored. If it's Living End, I feel like Living End is favored.
Yeah. I'm rooting for Titan Shift.
Oh, it's good. It's good. They've been playing really well all day. They've only dropped 1 game this weekend, haven't they?
Yeah, and it's such like all players are lovely, but it was such a nice player. I got to talk with him to put him on the feature match because I was like, there's a Titan Shift player like from today, like in the beginning of the day. I really wanted that match to come on feature, so I talked with that player, and it was such a nice guy.
I think I found that for the whole weekend though. Every player I spoke to, every match I've watched, they've all been communicating with each other. They've been interacting. They've been talking. They've been friendly. I spoke to that when Harry's on it. No one's been tilting off. No one's been moaning and going away in the sulk. Everyone's been really nice, really friendly at this event, and having a great time.
And I love that. I think people were without these kind of events for so long. Like, why be negative? Just come to play the game you love the most. Enjoy. Have a great weekend in this amazing city that is Copenhagen.
Yep, and if you happen to win, you happen to take it down, even better. If you don't, you get a great weekend away with your friends.
Yeah, I gotta love good sportsmanship.
I'm all about sportsmanship.
Yeah.
I love that. I think
That's
it's something that we end up losing in Magic quite a lot. Is
Yeah.
people do get salty, maybe because of the online atmosphere.
Yeah.
It's easy to say things behind a computer screen. When you're face to face with people, you obviously manage everything.
Yeah. When I'm playing, I like to win, obviously, like every player. But in the end of the day, if I was a good opponent to my opponents,
Yeah.
I'm happy about it.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you're a good human being at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you can sleep at night.
Yeah.
Chris is still shuffling, even though he's a massive Dane. These huge, massive hands, he is still shuffling. But Sparta.
Titan Shift for the win. A lot of people rooting for the Titan Shift player.
We kind of want to just not get, if a tier 1 deck cannot win this tournament,
Yeah.
that would be great for me.
Me too. Maybe we'll shift a bit the meta, Somebody's saying that they went to their first RCQ a few weeks ago and they were a bit scared of the event being a bit toxic, the players, but it was a great experience and vibe, they say.
That's great.
That's amazing. We love to hear that.
That's what it should be about, right? Having a great community to play the game that we love.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back at it. So it looks like Joel is starting with a untapped land. Who would have thought? I wonder what he could have for 1 blue or green mana.
Yeah.
Chris fetches, goes gets his triome. He's going to try and sort his mana situation out. And do more shuffling.
I love the triumphs, by the way. They are quite new. They came with Ikoria and now some more triumphs, and they are great addition to the land scenario. Yeah.
To the greedy decks. If you want to
Yeah.
be really greedy, now we've got the 3 color
Yeah.
lands that you can fetchable is the big thing behind them, right? And then add to that, they can cycle.
Yeah.
Great with Brennan 6. I'll take that all day long.
I've been playing quite a bit of Domain 4-color Zoo, and it obviously plays triumphs, and it could not play without the triumphs, I think.
Do you play the 2 mana spell that deals 1 damage for each basic land type you own?
I do.
Nice, nice.
I do play 4 of those.
And that is called Something of Fire, right?
Yep. And usually goes for quite a lot of damage.
Will, do you think 4 color is overrepresented versus the very it's overrepresented in online than it is in paper, I would say.
Yeah.
But then online it's still really expensive to try and rent that deck. But the more experienced players, the more grinders will have the ticks, will have the cards, so you'll see them tailor towards this deck. To buy this deck in paper, again, more expensive.
Exactly.
But I think it is overrepresented online as being great, but I do think it is the best deck in the format. I genuinely do think it is. If we had to make a list of all the tier 1 decks and put them in order, I would say 4 colors up there.
But I really like seeing different decks, because if everyone came with 4 color, it'd be so boring.
Just as we're saying that, Chris has got his best turn-free play, and that is a Teferi, and it does meet the mystical disputes. And this is what I was saying about. This is why you bring them in. You can't let a turn-free Teferi resolve, otherwise it's going to be endgame for Joel.
Yeah, and people were saying that
It's Tribal Flames.
yeah,
Thank you,
Tribal
chat.
Flames.
Thank you.
And one time I was playing this deck and somebody used Megas of the Moon.
Well, against you.
Yeah. I was very sad.
You're playing a 5-color greedy deck. You've got all the mana colors.
Yeah,
I'd
but
bring
then
it
I was
against
like, Tribal Flames so much damage. They're like, no, 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 no,
just
no,
the
no, no,
one,
just the one. And I'm like, what?
you. Okay, we're back at the match. Sorry about that. It was a bit of a rough one there. We're having a little camera issues currently at the minute. Everything's getting really warm, so we're trying our best to drag these last 2 matches to you.
Yeah.
So Joel's going to untap. Does he have a third mana? Like, imagine if Joel could then go counter Teferi, untap, and then cascade it. Doesn't look like he's got that. He's got the option of 2 land here. Which one does he want? I think he takes the... I don't know. You take the fetch here. Taking the fetch is just a point of damage you don't need to take. Yep, he decides with me. And plays the... can you pronounce that name? The Ottawoa? I'll let you pronounce that and butcher it.
Ottawa Soaring City.
Will deck lists be on Millie after the tournament? That was a good question. Do you know the answer to that?
I actually don't know, but we can ask. If anyone is hearing from staff that knows the answer, please let us know.
Hey,
and
Daniel
we'll
from Card Market's watching. He's one of my friends in England.
Hello.
Hello, Daniel. I'm not going to insult him by calling him the name I normally call him in the stream. No, do you think 4-color is much more represented offline? People tend to spend more money on real cards instead of MTGO. That is true.
But
they
also,
do,
you can rent cards on MTGO, right, Will?
Yeah, so they're asking, do they reckon that more people own the cards to play 4-color than they do online? This weekend, I don't know if there's been more. I think we don't have the breakdown of yesterday, how it works, but I don't believe there was more 4-color than anything. I just think 4-color was winning more, so we saw a lot more of it on the top tables. The percentage that managed to make day 2, we don't have. We do have how many managed to get into day 2. Obviously, there was 6, plus technically 1 more. So there was 7 decks that managed to get in. I do think it's the best deck, and I think that's why we saw it on the top tables. Is there more in paper than there is online? I wouldn't know about seeing the stats. After this weekend, again, all I really looked at was the top tables. I wasn't looking at the bottom tables. I was looking at good decks to try and find for the feature matches. So I was only seeing the decks that were winning, and that was 4-color. And we'd also see that on MTGO, right? But MTGO, it's so easy to try and adapt to the meta. Yeah. In paper, you can't adapt to the meta too much because you can only afford so many cards, right? You can't afford to change your modern deck every weekend, especially with the prices of modern in this current format that we're in.
Also, one thing is that 4-color deck was very represented here in day 1, and now we only have 1 in top 8, and it's a professional player.
Yeah,
there's a lot of players that play 4-color maybe on MTGO and then come to play on paper, and there's so many triggers. We saw a lot of players missing the Risen Reef triggers, for example. So there's a lot of things to keep track of. It's not an easy deck to play in paper.
No, you need to get the reps in with this deck. I believe Chris has played this a lot. Also, as I said well early on in the stream, I believe Chris is generally one of the best players on the planet currently. I think this man is a absolute talent, and that's just because of the amount of effort and time he puts into this game. That I believe this is his full-time profession.
But I think that's why we're also seeing like Titan Chief 2 Hammer times on top 8, because these players are used to play with their decks in paper.
And that's a big thing in modern. Yeah. It's a huge thing. You have to get the reps, and you can't just pick it up, play a league, hope for the best. The more reps you get that deck, the more intricate you know the lines that you need to take against whatever decks.
Exactly.
So this looks like Joel is cascading in response to a Teferi, and in response to the Living End, Chris is going to do an endurance back. And it's going to Joel's looking at his hand. Is this going to resolve? It looks like it does resolve. And then Chris is going to get back a 3/4. And then a Teferi is going to resolve. And that's huge if Joel doesn't have the force. He doesn't have the force. It does resolve. This is harsh.
Yeah,
this is going to be really real bad for Joel now to get back into this game. He's going to have to start hard casting his spells. Let me just look at his deck list a minute. Does he have another one of those lands that can bounce it back to his hand? Nope, Joe's only got 1 and it's in play. Other than this, he has no way of getting a active Teferi off the board.
And Renan 6 already at 7 counters.
Oh, actually, that's a lie. He does have 1 Colossal Sky Turtle. If he manages to draw that card and bounce his Teferi back to his hand, maybe he can go off. But he's going to have 5 lands to do that, plus Chris not to have any interaction in response. if there's an advantage bar, which we're gonna try and work on getting an advantage bar for next time, it's halfway to the left right now. I feel like Chris is in the driving seat here, and it's gonna be his game to lose.
I guess that's good news for Joel that can get.
Yes.
I mean, positive news. You can get your flight home.
He cycles there, pays 2 life, draws another card. He's got a dead living end in his hand. He's got a dead, I think it's Mystical Dispute in his hand. Foundation Breaker's got no targets.
Somebody's saying he needed a subtlety.
Yeah, oh yeah, he needed a subtlety. But once it's on the battlefield, that's pretty much game over. But Joel is one of the best. He's literally one of the best Magic players we've seen.
Can come back from this, it's Joel. And Joel was like, oh, I don't have a lot of experience with this deck. Somebody just gave it to me and I'm just playing it. Like, he has made such a great score. Like, he's like, oh, I don't even play much Magic anymore. I'm kind of like, you know. And here he is making top 8.
He said he played 4 games with Living End before coming to this tournament. And just for your natural skill, he's managed to get himself into the top 8. Or power level of this deck. It could be one of the other, or it could just be a mix of both. Put a great player with a great deck and see how far they can go.
That's how I love about Magic. Of course, like every game, there's some element of luck, but you keep seeing the same players making these top 8s. And that has to mean that skill is very important in Magic, and I love that.
We are noting here, obviously, the Teferi is on the battlefield. I do like ticking this down to bounce that agent back to the hand, because I'm not scared of anything. I know the land's on the battlefield. Joel's got a 1 in 60 card chance of drawing his 1 out now. That Ren in 6 is about to ultimate as well. Nothing relevant in the graveyard, but that's not to say that there won't be later on.
And the emblem stays.
Yep, you can't get that emblem off the battlefield,
No.
and he's just going to cash it in. Maybe he's got a second one in hand, but with no spells in the graveyard for him to cast yet, but he's locking up the late game, right? I have an active Teferi that you basically can't deal with. I now have a Ren 6 emblem. It does have a lot of land in hand, which is he does kind of want, but only when there's spells in the graveyard. It looks like he's got 2 land plus.
Some people are asking if they are brothers because of the last name being so similar.
They are not. They are from 2 different countries, and both their last names are spelt differently. Chris was actually saying to me before this that when he's in America, he gets asked, "Oh, how's your brother doing?" And he's like, "No, we're not brothers. We're from 2 different countries. It is spelled differently," and he plays on it like a joke.
If you are the Titan player that already made the finals, who do you prefer to play against?
I think it's the 4 color.
Okay.
Like Titan's got a really good matchup against 4 color because 4 color can turn from its deck, but it can only win really the mid to late game. It doesn't have an aggro start.
Yeah.
So that plays in the Titans' favor, right? They're gonna there's no counter spells on that side of the battlefield. They're just gonna ramp, and every land drop is gonna do 3 points of damage.
That's true.
I suppose they do play Beseiju plus Ren and 6 could help them.
Yeah.
But that's a really small line, a really small niche that Chris maybe he hits it, but in an 80-card deck it's gonna be very hard for him to hit.
Yeah. So people are asking, but both of them are Magic pro players like Christoffer Larsen and Joel Larsen, and yes.
It's Christoffer Larsen versus Joel Larsen. You would have seen them many times on the Pro Tour, and one is Swedish and one is Danish. And Alexander Haynes is in here talking about pros. How are we doing, Alexander? You might know Alexander from being the Canadian captain like 1,000 times.
Oh, I do know.
Top 8ing a million Pro Tours. And just being an all-around really nice guy. Used to stream as well.
I love how, like, even the pro community, they are all so nice. Like, I had the chance to meet some of them, and everyone has been so humble, so nice. Like, they always have time to give you a quick word, and yeah, just a great experience overall.
And they're just shaking it up there. That's it. That's going to be the end of the game. Joel realizes he can't get back. He needs to make this flight. He's not rushing, so maybe he doesn't need to make this flight. But that looks like we're going to have 4 color control versus Titan Shift, and I think Titan Shift is going to be favored in that matchup. We're going to have a quick break, and then we'll come back with the finals.
It's the finals.